This is how Mukesh Ambani steps out in public. This is how Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, the billionaire stock market investor, went to meet the Prime Minister of India wearing a crumpled white shirt. In fact, he even joked about it later on in an interview where he said,
white shirt है वो तो crumple होगी ना, क्या करेंगे? वो मैंने इस्त्री कराई थी 600 रुपए लगा के.
If you look at the founder of D-Mart, he's always spotted in his iconic white shirt. If you look at Gautam Adani outside of his suit when not in work, he's often spotted wearing a white shirt. Now, all of these individuals can absolutely afford any piece of clothing in the world. So why on earth do they try so hard to look middle class? In fact, when the founder of Kotak Mahindra Bank, Mr. Uday Kotak's son, was on a podcast, he said that he was raised with middle class values. This is someone who went to Columbia and Harvard Business School. And more importantly, why do you think your rich friend gets really annoyed when you call them rich? Today, I'm going to reveal one of the best kept secrets about billionaires. They actually absolutely love being perceived as poor. In fact, they even pay money to big PR agencies in order to make sure that the public image that they have is one of a regular middle class individual. And spoiler alert, this makes them even more money. Firstly, let me burst your bubble. It's all fake. Not a single billionaire actually lives like a middle class individual. They just want you to think that. Why Mark Zuckerberg always wears his simple signature black or dark grey t-shirt, you need to know that this is no ordinary t-shirt. It costs north of 55,000 rupees a piece. And that is its retail version. In this case, it is custom made for him, so it likely costs even more by an Italian designer label called Brunello Cucinelli. While all the athletes wear fancy watches that cost millions of dollars made by brands like Patek Philippe, Rolex, Audemars Piguet, Bill Gates is someone who wears a simple $40 Casio. How grounded and down to earth is he? But you need to know that Bill Gates has 2 private jets and 1 luxury super yacht. Elon Musk has spoken about this on podcasts multiple times that he lives in a modest $45,000 home. But what you don't know is that he too has 2 private jets worth $100 million. What I'm trying to tell you is that billionaires absolutely do not live like you and me. They have very different lives, but they want it to be known that they are just like us and they live lives similar to the average middle class person. And the reason behind this would shock you because this is what makes them even more money. So you would know that most of the famous billionaires are owners of publicly listed companies, which means there are other common people like you and me which also have a stake in their company. So it is imperative that these billionaires want their image to be that of a frugal, a responsible individual because that promotes shareholder trust. And for that reason, they pay PR agencies north of 10 to 15 lakh rupees every single month in order to make sure that their image is maintained. Why? Because frugality is often rewarded. I'll give you a very local example. Think of it for a second. Look at Mr. Mukesh Ambani and his public image. He's often perceived as a mature, frugal, understated individual. Often dresses simply, doesn't really believe in a lot of flashy things. But on the other hand, his youngest son, Anant Ambani, wears the most expensive watches. He's always spotted wearing the most iconic brands. Think of this as one of the shareholders in Reliance Industries. Who are you more likely to trust in the driving seat? Mr. Mukesh Ambani or his youngest son, Anant Ambani? Once again, no shade to the family, and I'm not saying this off the top of my head. There is an actual study that proves this. In 2012, a study was conducted by the National Bureau of Economic Research in the US, which found that all the senior executives of a company that engaged in personal luxury expenses were more likely to commit financial fraud. Not just financial fraud, but they were also more likely to be reckless with company money and prioritize their personal compensation above all else. This study primarily looked at factors like buying a very expensive car or buying a very expensive boat. And the individuals that were doing all these things were actually less likely to be trusted by investors. Billionaires obviously know this and they want to make sure that they are always perceived as frugal and responsible because they are often the ones that are in the driving seat of the company. The second biggest reason is that relatability and likability. You know that money is often demonized. People absolutely love hating on anyone who has money. In fact, many might also agree that money also brings the evil eye along with it. Now, I'm sure you remember all the tweets, LinkedIn posts, Instagram posts about the Ambani wedding, talking about how the family could have simply used this money for a better cause instead of wasting it all on a lavish wedding. Now, the reality is that it is their after-tax income, it's their money, doesn't matter what they do with it. But people love hating on rich people spending their money the way they want. And that is exactly what many billionaires want to avoid. They want to be liked and be seen as part of the masses. And this positive PR in turn raises their wealth. For example, you might see many startups talk about how they are backed by a billionaire like Ratan Tata or a billionaire like Mark Cuban. What does this do? It enhances that startup's trust in the ecosystem. And because of this, customers trust that startup even more. So do investors, and they find it even easier to grow and raise capital from other investors. This positive trust induces investments in the places that these billionaires invest in. In fact, it even induces investments in their own company. For example, Mr. Ratan Tata's personal brand and his image among the masses is the reason why the Tata Group is perceived as one backed by trust. A family brand that is used and loved by all Indians across. Now, you would also be very shocked to know that there are many billionaires that exist in this world that are not on any Forbes list. In fact, you and I don't even know about them. They pay a lot of money to make sure that they are not on such lists. Because the fame comes with a lot of problems, and when that fame comes, you want to spend even more money and try your best to make sure that A, you stay relevant, and B, you are always likable. Also, another reason we don't know about them is because it's very difficult to actually estimate personal wealth. If a company is set up as an LLP or an LLC, it is very difficult to estimate how much the founders of that company would actually be worth. Because by law, this company is not required to disclose anything about their operations as long as they pay their taxes on time. And now the problem is that this kind of PR actually has negative consequences on the general public, because it changes the perception of what it is like to actually acquire wealth. These PR gestures of simplicity, cutting down on expenses, billionaires talking about how you absolutely do not need to have a 400 rupee coffee every morning, are actually distracting you from a very real issue. And that is, the way to wealth is not via cutting expenses, but it is via raising income. The founder of Infosys, Mr. Narayan Murthy, said that Indians need to work 70 hours a week if they want to contribute to the growth of the country. But the sad reality is that over the past decade, the entry-level salary of Infosys has pretty much remained constant at just about 2.5 to 3 lakhs per annum. But during the past decade, the cost of your everyday essentials, your groceries, fuel, electricity has more than doubled. These acts of simplicity just lead people to believe that their spending is the problem and not really income. They are misleading. The only reason billionaires do this is because it is easier to keep employees in check when it comes to demanding higher wages when they see the employer actually lead a very simple life. Think of it this way: if your manager comes to work every single day in a metro versus coming to work every single day in a Mercedes, aren't you more likely to ask for a raise if you see him live a lavish life? It's just easier keeping your employees in check when they perceive you as someone simple who doesn't really want life's material offerings. A flashy life often attracts problems. If you start living flashy, a flashy life often attracts problems in every way, even in your private life. If you start wearing Dior and Louis Vuitton every single day, the next time you go out with your friends, they are going to expect you to pick up the bill. The truth is that billionaires know this. And the even bigger truth is that everything is PR. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.